Thank you for bearing with us. We have two members here, two members on Zoom. So there is a quorum of the planning board. And I will call the February 4th, 2025 meeting of the Town of McCandless Planning Commission to order. And our first item on the agenda is Walnut Court Phase 2.
Good evening, Steve Victor Wetzel Associates. Also with me are Adam Law, our civil engineer, and Bernie Lamb, another civil engineer for the project. So if you have civil questions, they'd be happy to answer and deal with those. We're at that point where we're just dealing with little corrections, odds and ends. And so I think we can easily respond to those items, and hopefully you'll be prepared to take some action this evening. Do you have a brief PowerPoint if we can touch on that?
Sorry, you caught me mid laptop cord here. All right, pull that up for you.
Can they see the screen at home?
Yes, that's why we do this.
Okay.
Next.
Yeah, I can see the PowerPoint. It's working great. Thank you.
You asked us to have the engineer prepare a statement as to the length of the cul-de-sac. Bernie's come back. It is 771.49 feet. It's identified in the upper left corner there, which is sheet 1 of 3 of the recording plans, specifically note number 14. And in the upper right-hand corner, we've put the X, we've inserted in exactly what line 14 says, that the center line distance is 771.49 feet.
But this particular picture is not in your submittal, correct?
Yes.
I think they need
The
to
upper
talk
left
about that.
drawing.
No, I'm the picture, the
No, because
overhead.
that's not what.
No, I'm just was asking. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. That's the reason I inserted the drawing up above on the upper left, so you would see exactly the sheet number and what it looks like where it was located. Next drawing.
Yeah, it's the one I was-
Yep. Yeah, the one we looked at.
This is the landscaping plan. Just gotta put this in. There really hasn't been any significant changes to the plan in the last several months. We've just been working through the details of what the sublots are going to look like and switching around the and complying with the landscape buffer yards and the final numbers on stormwater and things like that. So it's basically the same drawing you've been seeing repeatedly.
Kelly, you did still have one question on the landscaping?
It was just a minor question on the buffer yard. It was nothing major,
Yeah.
just location of shrubs, I believe.
This
Looking at the
drawing
count.
reflects that moving of the shrubs.
Okay.
Those shrubs have been sitting, they've always been there, but they were aligned with the 6 new tree plantings up above. And so at your request, we pulled them back down and put them into the buffer yard area for that.
I think that was the only buffer yard
Yeah.
related question that we heard, no, we had in there.
And next slide. And this just is a recording plan. The top half of it shows how there is open space area or common area A1 on the top or westerly portion of the site, and that the bottom portion of the site is all lot 201. And then the second half of the sheet there, the lower half of the sheet, shows how that lot 201 will be divided into the 6 sublots. And that only lot 201F has frontage, and that would be the modification to allow lots 201 A, B, C, D, E to not have frontage on the public right of way, or the right of way. No, it's not public. Walnut Court, the right of way. Okay. And that's pretty much it.
I'll just mention so that we have it on the record, because the last time that we were at the commission in January, we talked about just pulling the lot lines straight through I'll go back to this slide, east to west, all the way across what is now the residual parcel. This was the result of a discussion that I had with the applicant's designer, because if we were already contemplating this request because of the flag lot issue, there was no reason to just not make these parcels look like normal house parcels.
We actually had
Um,
that conversation at the end of the meeting. The commission members did not have an issue with
I
that.
mean, they were potentially going to
Yep.
take it, if you can see where my cursor, yeah,
Yep.
and I just, yeah, I felt like that just created a lot of land that people would get assessed on and not be able to use, so. this
And now
is-
it's going into common land like
Right.
parcel A, is it still? That's the
A1.
residual from
Yeah.
the,
A1.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think there was a comment about checking in with Allegheny County to make sure that they were okay with splitting that parcel. I would think that if they aren't, then a pretty easy solution to that is we just call it A and B.
Yeah.
Yeah, A1, A2 or AB.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, something
Okay.
like that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be one, but if it can, great,
Are you confirming that with the county or is that something you're looking for us to
that
do?
is you guys.
Okay, so Bernie, you'll check with Allegheny County and just verify that it's okay to have A1, A1 or it's A1, A2. Okay, we can do so.
there was one more engineering comment still outstanding on the, I think the infiltration rate in one of the,
Yeah, and I think Bernie did call our office and talk with the, Sarah who had reviewed the stormwater on that, and we're gonna get that addressed. So that's not an item that I would say would be of, concern moving this forward.
it's been hanging out there for a while though, right? Those infiltration rates?
Yes, but it's just a clarification based off of where the infiltration rate that was obtained, where it was used in the inputs in the calculation.
Yeah, we did submit the that today.
Mhm.
Together with, Great Control, we did not,
You did include it, right?
No other outstanding issues that you saw beyond typical plan?
No, not
Notes.
anything outstanding that I would say would be of a concern or would potentially alter what we would see here today, more just kind of cleanup items.
Comments?
No, I don't have any.
Mark? Comments?
No comments at this point. Thank you.
Okay, Sean?
No comments from me either.
Okay. Then in likely taking some action tonight, I would like to open the opportunity for public comment on this submittal. You have public comment on Walnut Court too? Okay,
They're not really any big deals. Ellen Wright, 9635 Old Kimmer Road, Allison Park, PA 15101. I'm just curious, the change in the slope from 3-to-1 to 2-to-1, if it's in a landslide prone area. And I looked for the map in the code, and it says in its appendix B, and I'm not able to find that in the code. So maybe I just don't know how to search for it. And then the other thing is the geotechnical report going to come first and then the approval? Or is the approval going to come first and then the geotechnical report? So those are my two things.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you. Geotechnical report has been submitted and approved by the town engineer. There were some revisions made for this, a recent submittal, correct?
Yeah, maybe a few months ago, at this point, early on. Yeah, and previously as well. And we did have some discussion about the slopes.
And we had discussion at the last commission meeting also. And at this point, is the town engineers comfortable with the concept of a modification after reviewing the geotechnical report?
Yes.
Sorry, Brandon, we'll offer you comment. Any other public comment? Do you have any comments you'd like to offer on this? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion from the commission. First motion would be tentative motion is to recommend to town council modification request number 1 to allow fill slopes 2-to-1 rather than the 3-1, with the supporting geotechnical report having already been submitted and reviewed by the town engineer. Do I have such a motion? Thank you. Second? Second, Brandon? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second action of the board would be a motion to recommend to the town council to approve modification request number 2 to allow individual lots to front on a 20-foot wide access driveway off Walnut Court cul-de-sac rather than creating flag lot configuration.
It was not me.
Okay. Configurations to achieve the 20-foot frontage on the existing cul-de-sac. So it's a modification to standards. Motion, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed.
Okay, wait, did we say that Al made that second or did you make that second? Al?
Al made the second.
Okay, cool, great.
Sorry.
No, that's,
And so the final action on this item is to recommend to the town council approval of Walnut Court subdivision 2 land development application as submitted by Walnut Court LLC with all the engineer's comments that are still outstanding addressed and recognizing the 2 modifications that have just been recommended. Anybody on the? All right. Al. All right, first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. RJ, will this be placed on the February 24th council meeting?
yeah, I don't see any reason why we couldn't.
Super. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good night.
So the second item on the agenda is a grading ordinance amendment review. RJ did send out a draft
Yeah.
to commission members. I don't know about you all, but I didn't have a chance to go through the whole thing in detail. So what is our time frame for
Well-
getting comments back?
Let me tee this up
Okay.
a little bit. So first of all, yeah, you guys got this last week. So what we have is much like we did in 2022, kind of a reboot of the stormwater code, although that wasn't nearly as comprehensive as what we did with the zoning and the Saldo. But there are 3 primary design codes that affect, site development in McCandless: the stormwater management ordinance, the zoning and Saldo, and the grading and excavation ordinance. That ordinance lives in the 1700s code, which is more like fire, building, regular, although I mean, we just have the state building code, so. But it's always lived outside of the zoning and the Saldo ordinances. So I apologize that this didn't come to you guys sooner. By the MPC, things that live outside of those ordinances do not come to the planning commission. However, by the local McCandless charter, the grading and excavation ordinance does, and I was not aware of that until recently. So we opened the public hearing for this draft to town council, but they have not taken action yet. And I have asked them to give you guys at least 1, if not potentially 2 meetings to take a crack at this if you would like. That said, just to kind of orient to what we have in this draft, it's not anything that is seeking to redo how we regulate grading in the town in terms of, like, we tightened up a few standards here and there, like benching is required for much shorter slopes. Before it was something like, I don't know, 50 feet before you had to bench a slope. That was something that our council president specifically wanted to see in there. A couple little things to tighten things up, but for the most part, it was really taking a look at the way that it was organized so it flows better for if somebody's trying to get information about what they have to do. It kind of follows your thinking process of, do I need a permit? What kind do I need? Well, do I really need it? Well, no, here's where you're exempt, for like reasonable circumstances. And here's what you have to do if you need to get one. We also cleaned up some language like around the modification request particularly. So now in this draft, if adopted, the stormwater management ordinance, the SALDO, and the grading code will all have the same modification request language and process. They will match. Right now, they don't. I mean, the process is the same, but it's just, it looks like it's talking about different things. No reason to not have the same language across the three. The biggest change is in the current grading ordinance, which was largely written in the 1970s, as was this, yep. It's about as old as the zoning code was and really had not been amended even, at least there were amendments here and there in the zoning code. This one is almost untouched. So at that time, the permit requirement that was established was anything beyond normal landscaping activities required a grading permit. And if you ask me what that constitutes, I cannot tell you because that is as far as it goes. So that makes it kind of difficult to tell people when they need permits and when they don't need permits. And we should be able to tell people exactly why we're making them get permits. So, and there were a few other issues that popped up over the years with, oh, they should have gotten a grading permit. Well, I don't really know why I could have told them that they had to because of this very vague standard. So what we developed on and off, we were working on this a bit before we started the zoning project and then came back around to it to make things more congruent with each other once we knew what we were going to have on the SALDO side. So what we ended up developing were two different review tracks, major and minor. Major grading permits are situations that, if you were putting a building in, it would surely trigger a land development application. But in theory, if you're not putting a building in, you're still doing the same extent of like a major fill site, flattening something out, in preparation to make it a site pad, but you don't have a plan for the development yet, that will now trigger a major grading permit. And that's essentially the standards that we have now for review. Reasonably, we could have said this needs a grading permit, but it's much more clear now in terms of like the depth of excavation or the height of the fill, using retaining walls over 4 feet, which you could not do at all previously, but now the zoning code allows with, engineering support for grade changes. So we needed to update the grading code to match that. So that's your full, like you set up an escrow with the town engineer and we administer it that way. It's very similar to the land development application standards. The minor grading permits kick in at situations where you're not excavating or changing the natural land surface more than 4 feet. You're not doing retaining walls over 4 feet, but you have over 5,000 square feet of
Disturbance.
yeah, surface, like an area of disturbance. And that shakes out to like, I mean, you would have to be adding, well, there's an exemption for if it's less than, I think, 500 cubic yards of fill that you're adding to a site or taking away. And that shakes out to you to have to be changing the grade by like 3 feet, like leveling your yard really significantly. So that is going to catch projects that are not just basic, like I'm making a nice little garden area or something. Like we don't want to be making people go through any sort of really significant review for the pretty basic stuff. But these are things where maybe you're affecting the way that, runoff works or the topography that maybe it would destabilize something enough that somebody should be looking at it. Though those plan standards are less arduous. You don't need to have an entire engineered drawing, but we would be able to, with a little bit of training, have our inspectors look at that in-house. So that's right now that's proposed at a $200 permit fee with that would have to be approved by town council, with a fee resolution update, which we also have coming up in a couple meetings if and when this passes. But again, like not looking to add more review burden, but just trying to catch those situations where it was very debatable, I guess, what somebody would consider normal landscaping, but you really need to get eyes on it. So that's the biggest change with what we have, other than sort of just reorganizing what's there. But that said, I'm happy to answer any questions about it, talk more about particular standards, whatever you guys would like.
Mark, did you have a chance to review the submittal?
I did not. I apologize, but I did
No,
not.
that's fine. Would you like an opportunity to review the submittal? Would you like us to provide comments at next month's planning commission meeting?
Yeah, now with RJ with the background, which is helpful, I would like to, yes, please.
So, sure.
Yeah, Sean, how do you feel?
Same here. I was not able to review it in detail and I would prefer an extra month if we can do it.
gentlemen?
I'm comfortable with RJ's explanation.
Okay,
I don't think we need to go any further.
I'm fine with further comments next month.
Okay.
It's pretty dense when I read it.
At least it's not 300 pages.
No.
But no, I mean, I kind of anticipated that because we usually try to give you guys 2 months to take a crack at these anyway, so. Right now, we have the ordinance, we had it advertised for the January 27th public hearing. In McCandless, we divide different types of ordinances into different classes. That's charter specialty, class A, B, and C. Usually, we just deal with the class A ordinances, which have like the MPC level of public hearing rules. Grading and excavation is class B, which means we have 60 days from the public hearing for town council to take action before we have to restart. So that will get them to the second meeting in March.
Okay.
Which does give you guys, you know, on this current cycle through next month's meeting to make any comments. And of course, I mean, if there's any substantial changes, we'd be re-advertising anyway. But, you know, even if you don't come up with anything major, they still have time on the current clock. They don't have to vote on it yet, so.
do you need any formal action from us tonight to?
No, that's okay. We'll say, we're gonna take comments next month and I'll let them know that at
Okay.
my report.
Thank you. Flag lot definition, which is before us because of the confusion or the debates that we had on the application that moved forward tonight. RJ sent out a draft definition for excuse me, for our consideration, and I took the liberty of making a couple of, not particularly, I did not take all my drafting supplies out to do these drawings. My concern with the definition as proposed is the top drawing.
Well, before we go,
Okay,
because
go through it, yeah.
wonderful, but let's read it
Yep.
into the record since this is on my
Okay.
council report, but
That's fine.
you know. Okay, so what we developed with the town attorney's office as it was sent out to you guys is a lot that has any portion of its front lot line or front yard abut the rear or side yard of an adjacent lot rather than a public road right of way, and where access to the public road right of way would typically be by a narrow private road right of way or driveway. This is fairly similar language, like we got a pretty good sampling of a lot of different communities in the area, sort of pick the things that work the most with our code. One thing you may see in other flag lot definitions that we did not keep in ours is a stipulation that it does not meet the minimum frontage requirements of the code. We took that out because in the RM district, when you have an attached unit, you only need that 20 feet of frontage per the code. So that would not, in what we allow for multi-unit developments, including that in the definition would actually prevent us from applying it to situations like Walnut Court. So Anne had some good feedback for me last week that I'm going to let her go ahead and explain that I think there's a little bit of a tweak in order, but the structure of what we're including and excluding here for the most part, I think kind of captures what we mean.
And I would welcome our town attorney's comment on this also. My primary concern because of the definition in our code for front yard and front lot line, the front lot line is defined as the front elevation of the building. So where you're building on a parcel. So in the first drawing, if you have someone that has all the other, a standard lot, meets all the requirements for a lot, but for whatever reason, they decide to set their house back, their building back further than the minimum setback, and they're behind, their front lot line is now behind the other front yards or front lot lines, they meet the definition potentially of a flag lot because their front yard now touches the side yard of the adjoining lots.
That was a really good point. Like, I'm glad that you thought about it. That
So
way.
we weren't trying to cause a situation like this where it would be a bigger issue. The primary issue is to address the second drawing, which my recommendation was that we deal with, so let me get to the, each of the districts has these building form requirements, which in the building form requirement sets a minimum setback for any building. So if we say that the lot has to, that the front yard, whatever, the way I defined it. That the front setback is specified in the building regulations for zoning, that a lot has any portions of its front setback abuts the defined rear and side yard. So the setback for this is only this, the smaller, so it isn't an issue.
So I want to knock this comment out quickly.
Yep.
I would not recommend including the word
Defined,
defined.
yeah.
Because the capitalization in this definition indicates these are terms of art,
Art.
and we don't want to introduce any
That's fine.
confusion in other situations.
That's fine.
I,
Wait, you're gonna take out defined
In
this
her-
the second lot flag?
yes, in
Yes.
Anne's amended definition, because defined is implied with the capitalization.
Does this make sense?
But everything else, yes.
Yeah.
To me, anyway. Therefore, obviously, members other than you, so I don't want to monopolize.
We're really trying to control the second situation, and in this situation, our front yard definition actually puts the entire front yard in the side yard and the rear yard, abutting a side yard and the rear yard, which is what we're trying not to do. So that was just my comment, and I did the illustrations because RJ and I trying to discuss it on the phone, it was like, well, wait, what about? So I just did some drawings.
So the middle
Mhm.
on the top is concerning because the second caveat in this definition and where access to the public road right of way would typically be by a narrow private drive right of way or driveway could theoretically describe a driveway.
It could, but more concerning that the front yard abuts the side
Well,
yard.
I think maybe there's one thing that's a little off in this diagram,
Okay.
which is the lot line should be the property line. Whereas it looks like you have it at the setback. But
No,
otherwise,
this is a lot line.
yeah, but you have the lot line labeled as green. back
Oh,
here.
sorry.
But like, okay, so yeah, so we're on the same page with that, but I completely agree that this is because the front yard is defined as from the front lot line to the front building elevation. So that's where these corners get caught if the house is set further back.
I get that and I appreciate that. My question is just because you have to meet a two-part definition.
Yes.
And so what is the concern with the second part of that definition that's implicated here that causes the gray area? I mean, I can see when you just say access by what would typically be a narrow private right of way or driveway, like most driveways are narrow
And they're private.
and they're private. And so if you have the two constituent parts that have to be satisfied, the second one may not really have any teeth if we're concerned about this middle part, which, okay, I get that's fair. I guess in terms of trying to avoid the semantics game of the second one as proposed, is there an alternative way to address this situation? The far right vertical front yard. Like, can you define a flag lot alternatively as a lot where you can't build a principal use in the geographic area there while respecting the minimum side yard setbacks?
See what you're saying. So theoretically,
I would be careful with that specifically because for attached units, there are
no side
zero.
yards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for some commercial, some of the more intensive mixed use districts, when abutting each other, there are 0-foot setbacks. So I don't.
So let me ask you that then, not to interject, but say you
Yes.
have that, would that be a flag lot in that situation? So you wanted to put it right there?
You wanted to build right there? Or that,
If
that
you
was a
could.
townhouse?
If it was a townhouse and you could put it there, you have this whole
Yep,
thing,
yeah. Well, I
but would
don't,
that be a flag
I
lot?
don't think so. I think it would because it can't meet the side yard on this side. It would still need a side yard to the single family. It doesn't need a side yard to the other multiple family dwellings.
Correct.
I mean, do we need a second part of the definition? How do we care how we access it?
I would, so the reason that was very common in like pretty much
Yeah.
every definition that we found of it. And although I'm always willing to go, oh, this is really something that actually makes sense, or people just do
Yeah.
it just to do it. At the same time, I was hearing a lot of concern from a few members of the commission when we were discussing the Walnut Court plan originally about this like skinny driveway that
Yeah.
doesn't qualify as a street.
Yep.
So when we put the draft together, I didn't want to mess with that too much because I feel like it kind of reinforces that like this configuration of running an access easement through somebody else's property to get around this problem is also not in the spirit of what we're trying to do here.
So I guess I would challenge going in with your thinking. All of those lots access from a driveway. They access the public right of way by a driveway. Correct?
Well, do you mean in the Walnut Court?
No, I'm just saying in any situation that we're dealing with a lot that abuts some sort of public access, whether it's a private road that grants them the right of access, they use a driveway to access it.
Yeah, I don't
So-
think a driveway is a distinguishing factor of a flag lot.
No, but I'm saying it is a distinguishing factor of all the lots.
Correct.
So is driveway the proper term?
Do we have a definition of driveway?
No,
Which is why it's not
we have a
capitalized.
definition of private road and road.
We have a definition of right of way.
And at
Yeah.
the risk of blowing this whole thing up,
I mean, we could just chop it
can't
off
make
and
a-
see what happens, you know, like, I'm
Well, I
not
think we just have
completely
a
married
lot.
to the and.
with that is buildable. And then do we really care whether someone builds in the front or back? We have a minimum lot width that would take into account whatever side yard setbacks are necessary.
But we do. Like, that's the point, that we intentionally made the minimum lot width in RM for attached units to be 20 feet. And the required frontage in the Saldo side is 20 feet. So like all of, and if I misunderstood, jump in. But all of these other definitions that talked about minimum frontage or lot width or anything, as soon as you involve that component, blows up the entire idea of what we were trying to do with the townhouses.
But if you could, just like go into this as an example, like could you put townhouses right here?
Theoretically, if you can
Because if
meet the
you-
side yard.
So do we really care what the backyard looks like? If
Well-
they decide to put a townhouse right here, do I care about that, which is basically just their backyard? It's not
The
going to be-
concern is what we had before us,
Right.
which is that they then build all these lots off this stem or flagpole.
I mean, I would say if what you're looking in this diagram here, let's entertain that this is 20 feet wide, right?
Mhm.
The side setback in RM is 10 feet minimum, except 0 feet permitted for attached buildings. So my interpretation of that would be on the side that is not attached to anything, you have to follow the 10-foot setback.
That would be mine.
So yeah, you would have to have an extraordinary skinny townhome.
Yeah.
But, yeah, when the driveway thing or the private road right away or whatever, I guess is just the cherry on top to drill it home, but you could pretty much accomplish what Anne was trying to diagram out, by ending it at rear or side yard of an adjacent lot rather than a public road right away, period. And that would still get the geometry right. I think because this is,
And we'd still be looking at something. Let me just.
Yeah.
We would still be looking at somebody coming in again and trying to define a drive and putting townhomes on it as a modification.
as long as they were subdivided, yes.
Exactly. So
I think, yeah, I mean, like, unless there's anything that you happen to know off the top of your head that you're like, no, you have to have this and clause in, like, I think we could probably live without it with what we've got. I would
What about
probably,
Orientation. Orientation of the building, or specifying that you can't, like, if you have
that's a bit broad.
a front yard width of 20 feet,
Mhm.
I get that the concern is you run a driveway with 15 houses back there. But if you have 20 feet fronting, can't we specify you have 20 feet wide of building? That's it.
actually you only have,
No,
Well, whatever it
yeah.
is.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
that's, I think
because
that
otherwise you can't have 100 feet wide. of
well, so
townhouse.
what when you're talking about width of building, what you're getting into is, and this is like a little bit of a confusing layer cake, so bear with me. But when we're talking about building form, that's a zoning regulation. When we're talking about lot design or plan design outside of lot width minimum and lot area minimum, that's on the Saldo side. And so as we, sectioned off, when we split, unembedded the Saldo, the zoning side is subject to variance, the Saldo side is subject to modification request. And so by controlling whether a flag lot is allowed, like, this definition should live in the zoning code because that's just where lot definitions live, but it doesn't regulate, it just defines. The Saldo side, I know this is like technical, but this is what you get into. I mean, you know that, you do this for a living too, but so by regulating whether a flag lot is allowed or not in the Saldo side, if there are particular conditions where maybe somebody is just having like a lot line revision or wants to chop off a little piece of their property and like give an access easement through one lot that is reasonable because you could build an ADU back there anyway or something like that, that's an opportunity for a modification request and it doesn't become subject to a variance. When you start getting into a building can be this wide, if you have this frontage and this and that, then you're really messing with the actual zoning regulations and you open this up to a hardship challenge, which is not what we want to do. If I'm following correctly, I think.
So what about this? Because I like the second part, because the first part seems like too much of low hanging fruit where there could be a some problem that we're not anticipating that could implicate that. And you say, no, like that. Flag lots, you know what flag lot is, look at it.
Yes.
So to me, if we stop it before the and, there's going to be some low hanging fruit there. So I'm in favor of keeping the after the and then you run into the problem of defining the driveway or whatever the case may be. But
Well,
can you
yeah.
specify the number of dwelling units that are serviced by said undefined driveway? Like if you want to put a mansion back here and have a 5,000-foot drive and it looks like this,
yeah, that's one thing.
Yes.
that's one thing versus if you want to put 10 townhouse units back here, all served by the singular drive.
That was why the 800 feet maximum on a single access road point. And this would be a single access road. So maximum
Yeah.
length was 800 feet. So then how would you put those units on it? It's a driveway. It's not access.
Right. I mean, that's part of like, we had to do a modification for that, I believe, for the Rachel Carson Eco Village as well. And so I mean, without completely being confident that like 360, I know exactly what that looks like. That was already an issue before. Because of, and I think maybe emergency access is where that comes into play, because you need to have something that will actually support and also be able to turn around a fire apparatus vehicle, whatever, fire truck du jour, you can't have a distance of more than like 150 feet from a road. Now, I guess if I think, and this is kind of what we were getting into when we were talking about throwing a quick amendment together to at least get this definition in here. I think number of units off a driveway when you don't subdivide, which is an option and which has always been an option, even in the old code. We can put limits on the number of townhome units in a building, which is 8. But at this time, I don't know that we have, and I'd have to really look closely, but I'm leaning towards, I don't know that we have a limit off of the driveway. But puzzling that out, I think, is something that's going to take a little bit of debate as to like, how much do we want to limit this? How are we, like, that's more of a design issue than just, oh gosh, we don't have this definition and we need it. So I think that that's still like a good conversation that should be had, and maybe even should be had like relatively immediately. But it's going to take longer than blasting out this definition, which we just need in the code for protection against the same exact thing happening again. So that would be my opinion at this time, is like, I don't know that I have a perfect answer, but I still think that we should do this.
What if you took out the word driveway, because private road right away would indicate that more than one property would be accessing it?
I think that's like another thing that I need to think about
Okay.
more. Because I mean, technically, you're like, in the code, there's no mechanism to create a private road anymore. That's also a modification
Right.
request at this point. So the more that I talk about it, the more that I'm like, I'm not really sure that the and is doing that much, but you like it. So I'm not gonna say that we should kill it.
Well, I like it because I just foresee some issue with the first part. I don't know what that issue is, but
It gives you more coverage
Right.
to get behind.
And
to have
that's also why I like it, but I would say probably, I mean, I would maybe in my own, time in between now and the next council, because we haven't advertised this as an amendment yet, like, but I want to look at the definition of front setback to see if we actually need to say is specified in the building form regulations. I think that the term of art being capitalized here kind of also does the heavy lifting already, that maybe we don't need to do this part. But I want to read it again before I really.
Yeah, the only reason I put that in there is the only front setback is defined, but without any dimensions. The only dimensional restriction on front setback is in that building.
Right, but then when you look at, okay, well, what's the front setback for this district? You can't go anywhere but the building form regulations. Like, that's just kind of how that would
The-
work.
Yeah, well, I didn't see that in the definition, but setback front is a setback measured from the front lot line.
Yes, but then you go to the zoning district the person is building in and you say, what's the front setback?
Yeah,
And it's right there. Like, that's just what you do. I don't think it like kills anything, but I think it's maybe needlessly complicating something that is technically defined okay in the code, but I see where you're going with
so
it.
let me ask you this one. then. And so the
Oh.
middle definition,
Which is the original.
a lot that is any portion of its front lot line or front yard abut the rear or side yard of an adjacent lot rather than a public road right of way. And the concern with that was this, right?
that if that were, yeah,
Yeah,
But the front yard here does. abut.
adjacent up public
Public
right away,
right.
potentially, yeah. So it's the public road right away?
what do you
So
mean?
if- So if you say the entire.
I
if the
think that like
entire
we
front
can-
yard width abuts a public right of way, then you wouldn't have a flag lot by definition. Unless our definition of
Right, but
a
Ann,
front yard width includes all this part up top.
but Ann's, I think that like using the front setback instead of front yard solves that problem, which is where Ann is going. I think that maybe we could
And I
get there
wonder
by
if there's
just,
a problem.
what?
I just wonder if there's a problem with the rather than. Because that's an alternative or.
Hmm,
Because
Okay.
here it does abut. Front yard or front setback does abut the public right of way. It just happens to abut that.
okay.
But if that's not the disqualifier,
So what if, I think what putting aside, like, we'll get to the rather than in a second,
Yep.
because like, ooh. But I think maybe to get to what you're just talking about in your diagram, and if we change yard to setback in the
Mhm.
original definition, we get there.
Yep.
This rather than, if we just cut out rather than a public road right of way. And it then read, a lot that has any portion of its front lot line or front setback abut the rear or side yard of an adjacent lot, and where access to the public road right of way would typically be by a narrow private road right of way or driveway. I think that gets us to Ann's second diagram. I think. Because I think the rather than is a good point.
So we're taking out rather than a public road right away.
It makes sense to me with the point Brendan has made, but does
Okay.
anyone, like, I'm looking at the engineer and the attorney
and-
too.
yeah.
Tell us if we're
I
wrong.
like that.
No, I do too. I do
Wait.
too.
I
Hang
think
on.
there's like a lot of options we've also got, and I think like each one needs to like be.
Okay.
looked at, if that makes sense, and I just people have comments.
Okay. But you understand where we're trying to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
It's all good food for thought. It's all the things that when you draft any
Right.
zoning revision.
Yeah.
Right.
You wanna think through all of the creative
Exactly.
scenarios. So like this
And look at it
is super
360.
helpful to
Yeah,
be like,
yeah.
Okay, this is what could result.
Right.
Yeah.
What could result from, I have to think about what could happen if these removals of these little words. in terms of
Right.
What are
Okay.
the options that
All right.
result from that?
I
There's
think-
something anyone's gonna have to answer.
I don't think we're like ready to advertise in general, but I think assuming, let's put it this way, so we can at least like kind of for now, potentially move this on, because right now we have our March cutoff, we know what plans came in, it's just a very basic lot line revision and a townhome chop up. So like, we don't have anything looming on us that we're gonna get
Mhm.
flag lotted in the
Yep.
next month. But I don't know what's coming in for April. You know, so let's, if what we're workshopping now does what we think it's doing, like, assuming it clears the town attorney's review, are we cool with that?
Yep.
Okay,
Changing front yard to setback and taking out rather than a public road right away. And just say, and where access to the public road. Yep.
pending their opinion, I am comfortable with that.
Okay.
And
I
then,
like that part. I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but
You like rather than a public road right away?
yeah, that to me clarifies more of the nature of the flag lot. If, does the town consider this part of the front yard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now,
Okay.
the definition is
Yeah.
to this building elevation, so
So-
that is front yard.
So I think in that case, you need the rather than.
oh, I thought we killed it because you didn't like it.
No, I like that part. You
Well,
can't
I
tell when I
like-
like things and I don't like them.
Really misunderstood
Yeah,
completely
that's
what you
We
were
need a
saying.
smile and
Yeah.
a,
I mean, I think the rather than is becomes the key part. Because if you have a front yard
Okay,
that abuts the rear or side
Ah,
rather than
ah.
the public road.
oh, that's,
I
oh,
mean, it makes sense to me, but I was ready to be
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, let's
Because that to
pretend,
me strengthens the first part and
Okay.
it provides the second part as more of a descriptor
yep,
than an
okay,
independent condition.
so let's revert back to just changing the word yard to setback.
setback.
I'm super confident that like if we were comfortable with yard, just changing it to setback actually for our definitions does better what we
Okay.
meant to do. So,
That makes perfect sense.
okay.
Okay,
The roadway discussion, I was gonna.
Yeah,
trying to think through every option and think of what is perfect.
Yeah.
gentlemen on Zoom, any comments or concerns with what we've been discussing?
Following along at home.
Mark?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, the devil's in the details and like, the discussion with the different words. But I think it's excellent to go forward. So please,
Okay.
let's move.
You good, John?
Yep, same here.
Okay,
Okay, so changing front yard to setback is just a definition issue that like completely accomplishes the intent of what council already gave the head nod for. So given that we're not
Yep.
really changing the substance of this, I'm comfortable with saying we can go ahead and put together the ad for a public hearing for this. So I'm not sure, I think most likely it would come to the March meeting, because I think we're, maybe if I have to do like date math, but yeah, I think it would have to come to the March one, because we're not gonna, yeah, and that's not gonna be enough before the 24th if the second ad runs on the 20th. I'm pretty sure. So most likely public. Yes. Yes, so most likely, public hearing in March. Maybe we want to do a pending ordinance resolution, just so we're covered for April. Okay.
Do you need formal action or is our discussion sufficient?
I think it would be good for you all to take a recommending vote, which means that
Okay.
we should take public comment.
Okay. So we need public comment first. Is there any public comment on the discussion of definition of flag lot? Not seeing any. We will look to a resolution for a recommendation on, I believe, the compromise definition that just changes the original definition and it just changes front yard to setback.
Well, I think compromise is, you give yourself more credit. We just workshop this. We
So-
agree.
Is there a motion? Anyone? Thank you. Second, thank you. All those in favor, sending it on, our recommendation on to town council? Aye,
Aye.
thank you, passed. Okay, next order of business is approval of the January 7, 2025 minutes. Any recommendations for modifications or changes from commission members? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
To approve as written.
Approve as written. Second, thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
I abstain from that vote since I was absent.
Okay. Do you need a voice?
Oh, no, that's
Okay,
okay.
all right.
Um,
So I'll open the floor to general public comment.
Ellen Wright, 9635 Old Coomer Road, Allison Park, PA 15101. As you review the grading ordinance, I'll ask that you not allow dirt dumping and not allow dirt stockpiling. Is something to take a look at as you go through it. Thank you.
Any other business to come before the council? If not, I'll entertain a motion for,
well,
no?
there's one more that's not on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
This one's all me. All right, let's rip the Band-Aid off. I'm sorry to tell you all that my last planning commission meeting will be in March. Oh, I'm gonna cry. Okay.
Disbanded?
No. You all will be here.
Our last meeting.
It's been a fantastic 5 years with the town, but sometimes you are presented with an opportunity that is too good to pass up. So I will be making my foray into the private sector after February.
Just going to the dark side.
I'm going to the dark side. They tell me it's still working with governments. That's what they all say. No, but I mean, this was a tough decision. There's been some really incredible stuff that over the years that we've been able to accomplish. It's amazing looking back at how fast we were able to accomplish some of this stuff. You know, we came in with Brendan, you've been here since the beginning from when I got here. You know, we were working under a code that was sometimes, 50 years old, sometimes on a good day, 20 to 30 years old. And that's usually when your zoning ordinance ages out anyway. So having the opportunity to guide that project to work with so many different, bodies and stakeholders and community members on that, and to have a code that really is like a standard in our entire region for how modern and forward thinking it is, while also protecting the stuff that was really important to the community in the comprehensive plan, has been incredible. And I really wish that I could be here longer to kind of take care of it and work with everybody on seeing what comes out of that. But when opportunity knocks, you don't necessarily get to tell it, can I have 2 more years? And there was a knock. So you will be seeing me more around the region, because I guess it was time to take the show on the road, hopefully bringing the same things that we were able to accomplish to Allegheny County and the greater Pittsburgh region as a whole. We'll be happy to tell you guys where I'm going once we're off the record, but I think at least while I'm still in the seat, maybe it's best for me to not promote. But yeah, I will be here through the end of the month full time, and I will still be coming back the first week of March to be running the next planning commission meeting and make sure that everything is in process and moving forward okay. But you will probably see my job get posted in the next couple days. So wanted you all to hear it first before you saw it on the website and went, oh my God, where is she going?
What did we miss?
But yeah, thank you to everybody that has put so much time and effort. At least I get paid to do this. You guys don't. And I appreciate the opportunity to work with you all on that. So
Thank you.
You.
that is all I have for this agenda. And I didn't cry. Let the record show. I've gotten better at that over the years, not doing the cry thing when I want to.
I'll make sure to note that in the minutes.
Thank you. Ms. Susko did not cry.
What you need to do is have the little drops on the paper when you, yeah. So that being said now, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
All right.